Well, hello there. My name is Chris Fernandez. Today I'm actually showing you, this is like the fourth video of this kind of series. The first series went through creating a session, and then I did a video on how to add ports to the session, and then I did another video on how to load a save configuration into the session. This particular session here is about how to create a configuration from scratch. So how we add from the ports that we get, we're gonna stack into protocols into that port, and then we're going to start up the session, and then we're going to look at a few things. So the first part here, this configuration here is already known from the previous sessions. So I'm going to go right through them, and I will not spend too much time into it. It talks about creating a session and adding ports to a session. Okay, so I'm going to stop the the automation right here. So I'm gonna click it off and start. I have a session running here locally on my PC, and it's connecting to a chassis and my 10.82 here, and I'm adding 2 ports to the session. So this is kind of gives us back to where we started, right? Um, so now that we have both ports, as you can see here, the ports are up, or it's getting there. It's rebooting the ports and it's gonna go up. And then as soon as the ports are up, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the handle for the port, which is part of the creation here of the ports. So like when we add ports to the session, I'm just storing that handle into this vport dictionary here, and that's what I'm going to be using to add a topology on top of it, right? So now that the ports are coming up, so the ports now are up, and this part of the code here will be skipped since the port is up. So now I'm up to here. So now I'm gonna actually those lines here you're gonna see it happening on here on the side. So I'm gonna try to make it so you guys can see here on what's happening on this scenario here. So I'm actually looking at this line here. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a topology, which is that box that has all the stacks in them, and I'm going to name it clients, and I'm going to add the ports to that stack. It's the same as me doing something like creating a new topology and getting ports here, and I'm doing this, and then I'm going to go, and then here I'm going to get my stack going. So first thing will be Ethernet or IPv4. In case of me doing this on the manually here, all I have to do is create IPv4, because all these stacks that underneath IPv4 will be called and created. So if I do this here manually, you can see that IPv4 got created, topology with 10 devices in it, and everything got created on that port 1, right? So that's not what I want to do. Let me go through. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go through the code here, what it's doing. So let me just step through it. So as this line here, I'm creating a topology, and this here is going to grab the handle for this topology. So I'm adding a topology to this session, right? So I have a session, I'm adding a topology to the session, I naming it clients, and I'm using port 1 for that. So as you can see, that got created. So the topology itself, it's just this block where I'm going to add my stack, right? So after I have my topology, I'm going to add this stack that's called Ethernet, right? So that's my first layer, and I'm going to name Ether1. So that's what happens here. So I created my device group, which is this block now inside of my topology, and I name it clients, and I have 5 of them. So I'm gonna create. So I first created the topology, and then I created a device group, which is this block here, and now I'm adding Ethernet layer to that inside of this topology, right? Inside of this device group. Sorry. So I'm gonna do that. Now I have a Ethernet 1 here. That's what I named here. Now in order for me to, now I look at the MAC addresses, and everything there's a default address here, right? So there's a default MAC addresses here already. There's Ethernet here, and you can see that the VLANs are disabled here. So in my case, I'm going to enable them. So what I'm going to do here under MAC increment is the same thing as if I'm doing this here, right? I'm doing MAC Mac layer, and then I'm doing increment, and I'm going to start in a step value here. This is what those start and stop step values here that you see here. So I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to go to my code, and I'm going to step right through it. So now I added the value cafe 01, and the step value is 1. It's 01. So this is what this line here of code does. So when the line is a single, and or it's either a single or increment, we're talking about this blue line here. So I'm controlling the global variable that is going to influence all the devices there underneath that. If I need to change this devices here individually, I can, and I'm going to show you later how to do it. So now under enable VLANs, I'm going to set that to single. So that's what I'm doing here. This enable VLANs here, I'm going to set this to true. So if I'm doing single true, this is equivalent to me clicking this right here, right? So when I add this line here, you're going to see that. So that gets created like that. Now, if I have, for example, if I want to have individually devices disabled and enabled, I have to give this a value, a list, instead of a single value true. So the single value true here is me equivalent to clicking and unclicking this blue line here, which is what we call it a global variable. I'm gonna step through this here. So now that I enable VLAN, this new tab here shows up, right? So now for me to grab that tab or that handle, I'm going to have to kind of reread the Ethernet layer. So the Ethernet layer now has a VLAN, which I'm grabbing that handle, and I'm adding VLAN ID, and I'm gonna put an increment in there, and an increment of value 0. So incrementing, it's incrementing, but it's really incrementing to 0. So all the VLANs here are gonna be set to 100. Right now it's set to 1. So this here, it will be the same thing as me doing VLAN single 100, right? Instead of doing incrementing step by 100. So I'm gonna step right through this, and that's what I did. If I set this to, let's say 10, and I can redo this, you're gonna see that this here gets reevaluated again, and now it's set to incrementing by 10, right? So and I can do this again many times, and this get written all the time, and there's not a problem. So that's how easy it is to configure it and change things around on the fly. You don't have to keep rerunning the same. So now that we have our Ethernet layer done, we enable our VLANs, we put values for our VLAN, we're going to put an IP layer on top of this, right? So what we do, we grab the Ethernet VLAN handle here, and we add an IPv4 layer to it, and we name it IPv4. So that's what we do here. So now if I run this line here code, you're going to see that a stack now got created, and it has some type of addresses in there and gateway and prefix that were default. And I'm setting now to doing the IPv4 address incrementing, and I'm setting this to 16.1.1, and I'm incrementing by 1. So all my clients here are going to have 172.16.1 IP address, right? So I'm going to do that. And now I'm setting a gateway, and I'm putting here as a single. So single means I'm actually going into this line here, and I'm saying single value, and I'm putting a value here. So that's what this line here does, right? So I'm going to step right through it, and you're going to see that now I have a gateway of 254 for everybody. So all these clients here are going to look for that as my gateway IP. Now on my other side of the topology here, I'm going to add a server group, which is my 254 address, right? So I'm going to go right through this here. We saw this already. I'm putting in the name here, server, instead of clients, and I'm multiplying 1, so I only have one server there. So I'm going to add that. That's my topology 2. I can change the name here anytime I want by using this here. So I should have done this. Server topo, right? So if I made a mistake in a code like this, like, okay, I just changed this, what I can easily do is just delete this, and then I can add this again, right? I can add this again, I evaluate this again, and I'm gonna add that again, and then I have to add this again, and then I can add an Ethernet layer again, rewriting that my Ethernet 2. Now I'm back to redoing the code. So now I changed this server instead of tuple 2. Now it says server top, what I wanted here, right? So now what I'm doing here is, again, I'm doing the MAC address and then I put in the VLAN so it gets configured correctly. So I'm going to step right through this here. Configuring IPv4, and this is only one IP address. So the incrementing, I'm going to get gateway. I'm starting IP, but there's only one device on this side here. So this incrementing here is just going to be 61, so which is the first IP address on the other side. So far so good. We created two topologies in two ports. One is we call the clients, the other one's server, and they're both looking at each other, right? So it's 116.1.1 looking at 254, and then the 254 here is looking at this IP on the other side. So whenever I start topology here, or I start protocols, what the clients are going to do and what the IPv4 stack will do when this resolve gateway is checked to true, it's set to true, it's going to send an ARP out, and they're going to try to discover the MAC addresses on the other side, right? So it's going to send an ARP saying who has IP blah blah blah, and the other side will send a response, and you learn the IP address. So this resolve gateway here, instead of unresolved, now it's going to be having a value in here, right? So right now what we're going to do here is going to start protocols, which is the same as me clicking this button here. So let me step right through this, and now I'm starting protocols. And let's say, for example, now I started protocols. Things are up now, so you can see everything turned green. So now we can see here the IPv4, my gateway IP, and they all resolve the MAC address to this MAC on the other side. And the same thing goes with this. He resolved the MAC address based on that first MAC address of that first device on the other side, right? So let's say, for example, that you don't have this particular table on your view here, and I'm still going to be able to use this. That's not a problem because that's part of the default. So you can see here I'm using a protocol summary, which is, you don't see it as a tab here. So to enable that view, you're going to go in here and say protocols view table, and you apply, and that's going to show up. And then what I'm doing here, I'm doing a regular expression. So imagine that you have multiple protocols here, and I'm doing a specific regular expression on IPv4. And I'm matching the uppercase, and I'm saying that only IPv4 you're going to see. And what I'm doing here is actually something that I use a lot, which is looking at sessions down and not started. Why I do that is because I don't have to keep up how many sessions are up, because either the sessions are down. If the sessions down and not started are both 0, that pretty much tells me that the sessions are up. So I don't have to keep up on how many sessions I'm looking at. So right here, I don't have to know the 5 and the 1. I can use this line here to make sure that all my IPv4 is up, no matter what this number here is, right? So that's a trick that sometimes I use too, and it's probably but I could easily put that 5 and 1 into a variable and kind of match on the sessions up column here, right? So, but that's a trick that you can do. Now that we're looking at that, we're looking at exactly the protocol type, IPv4, and we're looking at sessions down not started equals to 0, and that matches. So this here goes through and the code continues, right? So now that we have the sessions up and the clients up, you can look down here the code that I have running before. And if you look at, for example, if you want to find out how many the resolve gateway MAC addresses, so you want to know on let me see here, on Ethernet 2, so Ethernet 2 is my server side here. I want to know what my topology is. For example, if you have a code that you do not store the information about the topology handle or anything like that, you can easily find out based on things that are part of the library. So let me open up the browser here, and I'll show you what I mean. So for example, like let's say I have this session already running and I want to grab the topology, the topology for clients, right? So the topology for clients, it's this here, right? Let's say I don't have that handle. What I can do, I can use the find function to be able to find whatever I want. So over here, I want to look at the handle for the topology. I'm going to look at my session. I have my session, I have my topology. So if you look at my session, I have an X network session, which is compared to this, and I'm looking at topology. Under topology here, you're going to see two things, ID and name. So you can actually put find, you can do ID 1, and it's going to give you back the clients, or you can find based on clients. And this is recursive. So if there's anything in here that is not just inside of topology, but inside of Ethernet. So for example, I can go in here, I can go to the device group, and then I go into the clients, and I go to Ethernet, I can go to IP, and I want to know this here. I can actually read all through this here and look for IPv4 or name something. If there's any names here that you are able to find, so I think if I change the name here, I'll be able to actually find this particular name by using finds and not specifying exactly where to find it. So I can go from, so over here in this case here, I'm starting my tree on the Ethernet 2, but I could start before that. I could start with my device group, for example. So he goes and he will go through recursively all the device groups until he finds the first one that matches that name and gives it back to you. So this is a way to find the handles for any of the stack that you're looking for. Okay, so so this is how to find the topology. Now if I want to grab the MAC address information, so in the case when I just started, like when I have Ethernet 2 here and I save that handle, is like its old one, right? I have to reread it to be able to find whatever it has now, what's the status is now, right? Because when I created this handle and I saved it, it was not started. It didn't start yet. So now I have to reread it. So the way I reread it, I go Ethernet find, IPv4 find, and then I resolve MAC addresses. So what I'm looking for is actually, let's go back to the browser, for the IP. If I'm looking for here, I'm looking for this table here, right? So I'm going under topology 1, and I'm actually looking for IP. I'm on Ethernet 2, so I'm going to go back here to IX network, and then I'm going to go topology, and I'm going to go into server topology. That's my Ethernet 2. That's right. So my Ethernet 2. That's where I start this, and then I'm gonna go find, and then I find my IPv4. I'll do IPv4, and under IPv4 I'm finding this table here of resolved gateway, right? So IPv4, let's see what I did. Device group Ethernet, IX network, topology, server topology, and the device group, server, Ethernet, IPv4, and I'm looking for IPv4 attributes, and now I'm looking for under addresses, resolve MAC. So this is the resolve MAC here, which is this particular field here. This is not very interesting, but because there's only one, right? I only did a resolve MAC address under Ethernet 241. So when I do this here, let me execute that line, and that line here under resolve MAC, you're gonna see that now it matches this table here that I'm looking at, right? My first address on the other side. Now, let's say, for example, that you want to the session already started, so you have you have IP addresses here that you defined, and everything is fine. But now you want to change it. So you can change it on the fly. It's not many things, not many fields that allows you to change on the fly. So for example, I can change this on the fly. So if I make modifications here anywhere in here, and I say this is 26, for example, and I do this, you can see that this now it's highlighted black, and now I have to press apply changes to make that changes on the fly. So I can make that change as we go. Some things that it will allow you to make changes, some things you won't. You see this asterisk here saying that things were changed but not applied. So I'm gonna change this back to 24, even though now the 24 is the value, so nothing is changing. So on the code itself, this is how you do it. I created here, let's say I created a unique IP address list here of 178, 179, 191, and now I'm going to apply to my my client side here. So I have my unique IPs, and I'm going to apply. The way I apply to individual numbers here is by giving a list. So if I give a list to my variable IP addresses here, that applies as a list for my all the devices that are in there. If the list is greater, or if the list is greater, what we're going to do, you're going to select that list multiple times until you finish going through the whole list. But the point here is that you can individually change these value here, or you can change the blue line here by doing a single, right? Or single or increment, things like that. That's going to be applied to the global variable here. So let me go through the code here. So that got applied here. So as you can see here, now I have a unique IP address here applied to this. And as you can see, now I have this little asterisk telling me that something got changed but not applied. And the way I apply this into my configuration, I just use the globals in topology and apply on the fly, which is the same thing as me pressing this button here. So I'm going to do that. So that got applied on the fly. So now I have unique IP addresses here that I changed, right? So anyway, I'm going to stop here for this session. On this session, we went over creating things from scratch, changing things on the fly, on the fly, and grabbing values from learned information. In this case here, we did the ARP, but that applies to any protocols that we learned. And then we finish up by changing things and pressing apply changes on the fly. Not all the fields that can do that, but some that allow you to do that. That's how you do it, and that's under a global. It's under global, which is kind of these buttons here for this session. Anyway, this is all I want to cover for this session. Let me know if you have any changes. Sorry, if you have any questions. Bye.